Chapter 153 to 155. Okay. What a terrifying energy ball. There's no doubt that this kind of energy ball could easily kill all the gods of destruction. Is this guy really mortal? It's unbelievable, Champa exclaimed. All the gods were frightened by the sight of the two energy balls that Goten had condensed in an instant. Such a terrifying display of power was beyond the capabilities of the gods of destruction. Even with their destructive power, it was impossible to reach this level. As everyone watched in amazement, the terrifying energy balls blasted toward Zeno's guards. However, the faces of the two guards remained unchanged. The antennas above their heads suddenly released lightning-like lasers, directly countering the energy balls. The moment the terrifying energy balls collided with the laser beams, the two streams of energy exploded instantly. Boom! Terrifying shock waves began to sweep across the audience. All the gods instinctively used their arms to protect their vital parts. Even though it was only the shock wave produced by the energy collision, it was enough to seriously injure or even kill them. The Supreme Kais, being the weakest among the gods, hid behind the gods of destruction and angels. If they were hit by that shock wave, they would surely die. Seeing this, the angels hurriedly waved their staffs, creating a green energy barrier that enveloped the gods of destruction and Supreme Kais. But even so, the shock wave was still able to shake their barriers. Amazing! Whis and Vados were also extremely shocked. They hadn't expected Goten to reach this level against Zeno's guards. And by the looks of it, Goten was playing with ease. At the moment when the four energies collided, Goten's body disappeared like a ghost. When he reappeared, he was already in front of one of the guards. Before the guard could react, Goten slammed his face. The ki aura around Goten's body rose instantly, and the terrifying force directly pushed the guard into the ground of the ring. Rumble! A huge sinkhole appeared on the hard ground, with the guard's body pressed tightly to the bottom. "Damn! Let me go!" the other guard shouted, flashing out of his position. He rushed at Goten and punched him heavily. "Humph, the speed is too slow," Goten said dismissively. "With this speed and strength, are you really capable of protecting Zeno?" The speed in front of him was laughably weak. Originally, he thought the strength of these two guards might be close to the Grand Priest. But now the gap between them was immense. Even without fusing three legendary bloodlines, Goten had absolute confidence that he could defeat these two. As soon as he finished speaking, Goten picked up the guard in his hand and threw him directly toward the other rushing guard. The two couldn't react at all. Boom! Their bodies collided heavily and they were both knocked back. Goten's body appeared in midair and he shook his head as he watched them. The strength of these two guards was indeed weak. Although they were much stronger than angels compared to the Grand Priest, they were far behind. "It's amazing! In hundreds of millions of years, I have never seen such a powerful mortal. Even Lord Zeno's guards can be played with so easily. If he is allowed to practice for hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps his strength will completely surpass mine," said the Grand Priest in astonishment. He had never seen a mortal with such powerful potential before. No, he had seen one, but that was hundreds of millions of years ago. At this moment, the two guards had already stood up. They faced each other for a moment, staring at Goten with anger in their eyes. Unexpectedly, they were not this guy's opponents, and it seemed that the gap in strength was still very large. Thunder of Judgment! A powerful lightning laser was released from the antennae above their heads again. Seeing this, Goten remained unmoved. Just when their lightning laser was about to touch Goten, a different dimensional portal suddenly appeared around his body. The two lightning lasers disappeared directly into the portal. Just when everyone was shocked, Goten's body disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was behind the two guards, his palms already attached to their backs. It's time to end this farce. After Goten's voice fell, two powerful energy waves condensed instantly. The guards had no chance to be surprised or react as the energy exploded instantly. Rumble! The energy wave of the explosion shook the entire Zeno's palace. The terrifying shock wave even destroyed all the rings in front of Goten. The bodies of the two guards had already returned to Zeno's side. Obviously, they had lost the battle, and in an extremely humiliating way. From beginning to end, Goten remained calm, without showing his true strength at all. "I'm very sorry, Lord Zeno. We lost this match, and we admit our defeat. The strength of Lord Grand God of Destruction is indeed very powerful, and it is not something we can contend with," the two guards said respectfully to Zeno, looking embarrassed. They had been so confident before, making their defeat all the more humiliating. "Hey, this was expected, so you don't have to be so embarrassed. After all, the Grand Priest said before, Goten's strength is very strong, even if you lost. I won't blame you this time," Zeno said casually. It seemed that he was happy, not upset, about his guard's defeat. "It seems that the strength of the Grand God of Destruction is indeed very strong, stronger than I imagined," the Grand Priest said with a smile. Then he turned his head and looked at all the gods of destruction. "So, everyone, is there anything you are still unconvinced about? If you are not convinced, you can fight against the Grand God of Destruction. If you have a chance to win, then maybe Lord Zeno will consider giving you this position." The Grand Priest still had a faint smile on his face. After he spoke, all the gods of destruction looked at each other in dismay. They looked a little embarrassed. Before, they were really not convinced about letting a mortal take the position of Grand God of Destruction. But after seeing the battle just now, they were completely convinced. Even if their hearts were not convinced, their bodies were. The casual strike from that mortal just now could easily kill them. The gods of destruction. Even Zeno's guards were no match for Goten. If these gods of destruction wanted to fight him, it would be no different from seeking their own death. "It seems that you all are convinced by the Grand God of Destruction," the Grand Priest remarked with a slight smile. "Don't say Lord Zeno didn't give you a chance in the future. It's because you didn't grasp it yourself." The gods of destruction dared not speak up. First, Goten's position as God of Destruction was hand-picked by Zeno. Secondly, his strength was indeed much greater than theirs. Based on his power alone, he was fully qualified to be the Grand God of Destruction, so they couldn't refuse to accept it. After speaking, the Grand Priest turned to Zeno and asked with a smile, "Lord Zeno, the appointment of the Grand God of Destruction has been confirmed, and all the gods of destruction are convinced. The match just now was very exciting. Do you have any other orders?" Zeno stroked his chin, thinking for a moment. "It always feels like there's something unfinished." "Oh yes. Grand Priest, all the gods of destruction are assisted by angels. Goten is now the Grand God of Destruction. He should also be assisted by an angel." Zeno then looked at all the angels, seemingly searching for a qualified angel for Goten. After all, every god of destruction had an angel to assist them. It would be too outrageous for the Grand God of Destruction not to have one. The Grand Priest looked at Zeno, then at Goten, seemingly in a bit of difficulty. "What's the matter? Is there something difficult about this, Grand Priest?" Zeno asked. "It's not embarrassing to admit it. The main reason is that all angels are now performing their duties, and the positions for guide angels and trainee angels are all full. There are currently no extra angels available, so this matter is a bit difficult to handle," the Grand Priest said with a slightly embarrassed smile. There were only so many angels, after all. Those angels whose gods of destruction were erased had completely lost their capacity as angels. "In this case, let a trainee angel become a regular and join the ranks of the assistant angels and assign him to other god of destruction," Zeno said calmly. Compared to Goten, the other gods of destruction seemed less important. "Since Lord Zeno said so, then fine." The Grand Priest nodded. If Zeno had spoken, he had no reason to refuse. He then looked at all the angels and asked, Which one of you wants to be the assistant angel of the grand god of destruction? After the grand priest's voice fell, all the angels looked at each other in blank dismay. No one wanted to be Goten's angel. After all, they had all stayed with their respective gods of destruction for at least tens of millions of years and had formed attachments. Lord Zeno, Lord Grand Priest, I want to volunteer for the position of assistant angel of Lord Grand God of Destruction. Vados suddenly stood up and volunteered when all the angels looked at each other and no one stepped forward. As soon as Vados stepped forward and volunteered to become Goten's angel, all eyes turned to her. Behind her, Champa was utterly dumbfounded. Vados, what nonsense are you talking about? Wouldn't it be better for the two of us to stay together? Champa asked, his tone full of disbelief. We've shared so many delicious meals together over the years. How can you do this now? He added, his reluctance obvious. After all, they had been together day and night for as long as he could remember. Over time, he had developed a certain dependence on Vados. The thought of adjusting to another angel seemed almost impossible for him, at least not any time soon. But what really stung wasn't just the thought of her leaving, it was what her choice implied. Vados stepping forward meant she no longer wanted to work with him. None of the other angels from the other universes had volunteered. Only Vados had stepped forward, and that fact made Champa feel even worse. Lord Champa, Vados began, the time I spent with you was indeed enjoyable. Champa perked up slightly at this, but his hope was short-lived. Although, Vados paused. You're often angry at me, lazy, and unmotivated. And let's not forget, you're the weakest among all the gods of destruction. Champa's jaw dropped as she continued her brutally honest critique. But, Lord Champa, you do have some strengths, she added, trying to soften the blow. For instance, you're excellent at eating and, Vados trailed off, unable to come up with another compliment. After a moment of thought, she added, well, I guess that's about it. Champa's face turned red with anger. You hateful, ungrateful bastard! If you've already decided to leave me, why insult me like this? Why reduce me to a good-for-nothing? He thought, gritting his teeth. But what could he do? Vados was an angel, and her father, the Grand Priest, was present. Champa didn't dare offend either of them. He waved his hand dismissively and grumbled, Fine, fine. If you're so eager to leave, then go. Anyway, the new trainee angel will probably be more obedient. The other gods of destruction couldn't help but feel that Vados's decision was a little unfair. After all, among the 12 angels, she was the only one to step forward. In comparison, her choice seemed rather harsh. However, such thoughts didn't last long. Everyone knew that becoming the angel of the grand god of destruction naturally came with higher status and opportunities. The Grand Priest finally spoke, his calm voice breaking the tension. Vados, are you sure about this? Do you truly wish to become the assistant angel of the grand god of destruction? Though Vados wasn't the best among his children, she was still his daughter, and he valued her deeply. Her choice to step forward first was surprising, but also wise. Staying with Champa would have meant a stagnant future. Champa, as a god of destruction, had been around for hundreds of millions of years. Yet instead of growing stronger, his power had declined over time. He had no potential for further development. At best, he could remain a god of destruction for his universe. At worst, Zeno might erase him entirely someday, especially with so many universes already proving difficult to manage. Some universes' mortal level was too low that Zeno was already considering erasing them. Yes, Lord Grand Priest, Vados replied confidently. I would like to become the assistant angel of the grand god of destruction. She smiled sweetly at Goten as she spoke. Goten was slightly surprised by her decision. Whether in this timeline or his own, he hadn't shared a good relationship with Vados. The Vados of this timeline had never even met him before. Yet now she was volunteering to be his assistant angel. Her sudden enthusiasm left him a bit stunned. Still, he couldn't deny the advantages. Among all the female angels across the 12 universes, Vados was unmatched. She stood out in terms of status, appearance, and strength. The only angel who could compare to her was Margarita from Universe 11. But Goten didn't particularly like Margarita. In his timeline, her close relationship with Belmod had left a sour impression on him. And since he disliked Belmod, he couldn't help but feel the same way about her. As for Angel Kusu, while she was pleasant and good-looking, her petite stature made her seem too small for his liking. Tien. Ayo, didn't he offer? The angel from Universe 12? Her figure was overwhelming, so much so that it was hard to take her seriously. And as for the male angels, Goten had no interest in them whatsoever. He didn't have such depraved interests. The Grand Priest turned to Goten, his expression neutral. So what does the Grand God of Destruction think about Vados' proposal? If you have no objections, she will officially become your assistant. Goten glanced around. It seems none of the other angels are interested in me, he said with a shrug. In that case, Vados it is. Compared to the alternatives, Vados was clearly the best choice. Weiss might have been a good candidate, but unfortunately, he was a man. Very well, the Grand Priest announced. From this moment forward, Vados will officially serve as the angel of the Grand God of Destruction. With that, the matter was settled. After a brief discussion with Zeno and the others, Goten left Zeno's palace with Vados and returned to Earth. Once they arrived, Goten turned to Vados, his curiosity evident. "Vados, can you tell me why you chose to follow me?" he asked. It puzzled him. None of the other angels had shown any interest in becoming his assistant, yet Vados had been eager and resolute in her decision. Vados tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Maybe I've just had enough time with Lord Champa and wanted a change of pace. Or perhaps I see great potential in you, Lord Goten. Becoming your angel seems like a promising path." Goten raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? Well, if you say so. I guess I didn't know angels as well as I thought." He didn't particularly care whether Vados' reasons were genuine. Even if the Grand Priest and Zeno had sent her to monitor him, it wouldn't matter. If she ever posed a threat to his safety, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate her. Vados smiled, her expression calm and composed. "Ha ha ha ha. Lord Goten, you'll have plenty of time to learn more about angels." Then she added, "For now, why don't we find something to eat? I've heard the food in the 7th universe is excellent." "All right. Since you took the initiative to become my assistant angel, it's only fair to treat you to a delicious meal," Goten said, nodding. If Vados hadn't stepped forward earlier, it would have been a rather awkward situation for him. Inviting her for a meal on Earth was the least he could do to show his gratitude. However, even as he thought about this small gesture, Goten had already made up his mind to leave. Becoming the Grand God of Destruction in this timeline was a significant development, but it wasn't the ultimate goal for him. What he wanted to accomplish went far beyond this. The Grand Priest of his original timeline still had to answer for his actions, and Goten wasn't going to let that slide. More importantly, he was concerned about the others he had sent away earlier. While Krillin and Trunks were strong, the world was full of unpredictable dangers. If they encountered someone stronger than them, they might not be able to handle it. Time was of the essence. Goten had to find them quickly. After activating instant transmission, Goten and Vados soon returned to Capsule Corp. At the sight of Vados, everyone in the building looked shocked. "Goten, what's going on here? Who's this woman with you?" Bulma asked, her voice full of surprise. "And why does she look so much like Whis?" Though Vados was clearly female, her appearance was strikingly similar to Whis, right down to her complexion, hair color, and the angel uniform she wore. Goten hesitated briefly before introducing her. "Everyone, let me introduce you. This is Angel Vados. She's Whis' older sister from the 6th universe, and she's also my assistant angel now." "What? Your assistant angel?" Vegeta asked, his confusion evident. "Aren't angels supposed to assist gods of destruction?" Why do you have an assistant angel? Hey, don't be surprised, everyone, Vados replied with a polite smile. Lord Goten is now the grand god of destruction, and his status is far above that of a regular god of destruction. Grand god of destruction? Bulma and Vegeta exclaimed in unison, their surprise growing. Neither of them had ever heard of such a position before. And when had Goten taken on this role? It's a long story, Goten admitted. But yes, I'm officially the grand god of destruction in this timeline. As for the details, I'll explain them to you all later when there's time. For now, could you prepare some food? I'm starving. Yes, of course, Bulma stammered, still processing what she had just learned. Though the idea of Goten being a grand god of destruction was hard to believe, the angel standing beside him made it clear that it was true. No one could deny the legitimacy of the title when an angel was involved. Within 10 minutes, Bulma had prepared a large table of delicious food. As the wealthiest woman in the Dragon Ball world, her home naturally had a full staff of skilled chefs. The feast was soon underway, with everyone eating voraciously. Broly and Chi-Lai were no exceptions. For Broly, this was a far cry from the harsh life he had endured on planet Vampa, where his primary food source had been the bitter and unappetizing legs of giant spiders. Earth's food was an entirely different experience, one he was more than happy to indulge in. Wow! Is this really the food of the 7th universe? Vados exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. It's incredible. I've lived for hundreds of millions of years, and I've never tasted anything this delicious. Her amazement left her wondering why Beerus hadn't been more aggressive in competing with Champa using Earth's food. But those thoughts quickly faded as she focused on enjoying the spread before her. More than an hour later, everyone had eaten their fill. Even Vados, who normally maintained a composed demeanor, looked completely satisfied. Wow, the food on this planet is just amazing, she said, patting her full stomach. It seems becoming Lord Goten's assistant angel was truly a wise decision. If she hadn't become Goten's angel, she might never have had the chance to taste such delicacies. Meanwhile, Goten turned his attention to Broly and asked, Broly, I'm about to leave for a faraway place. Would you like to come with me, or would you rather stay here? Broly's incredible potential made him a valuable companion. With proper guidance, Goten believed Broly could grow into a powerful ally, perhaps even his right-hand man. However, Broly belonged to this timeline, and if he chose to stay, Goten wouldn't force him. Broly hesitated, clearly torn. He glanced at Chi-Lai and Lemmo, his two closest friends. Before he could answer, Chi-Lai spoke up. Lord Goten, if you're going to take Broly with you, could you take us too? Broly doesn't have many friends in this world, and we're the only ones he has now. Her tone was respectful, bordering on reverent. Though she didn't fully understand what Grand God of Destruction meant, she knew it was far beyond Frieza's level. The memory of Goten easily killing Frieza with a single blow was still fresh in her mind. Of course, Goten replied with a smile. I wouldn't want Broly to feel lonely without you two. Relieved by his answer, Broly nodded. Then, I'll go with you, he said. His bond with Chi-Lai and Lemmo was strong, and he couldn't imagine parting ways with them. All right then, Goten said, standing up. Before we leave, let's visit Mount Paozu one last time. It's time to say goodbye. At Mount Paozu, Goten reunited briefly with Chi-Chi. What? Goten is really leaving? Chi-Chi said, her voice filled with reluctance. I haven't had the chance to properly reunite with my son after all this time. Though this Goten was from another timeline, he was still her child in some way. Yes, I have to leave, Goten replied firmly. The mother in my original timeline also needs my protection. Chi-Chi sighed but nodded. All right then, just promise me you'll visit us when you can. And while you're at it, teach our Goten and Gohan a thing or two. Her perspective on training had shifted. Watching this, Goten's incredible strength had made her realize that power was more important. "Don't worry," Goten replied respectfully. Though he hadn't always liked Chi-Chi's personality, his experiences in the other timeline had softened his opinion of her.